Estamos con Johnny Friday y él es buzo profesional desde hace... How long have you been diving in your life?
I've been diving since I was about 18 years old, so I've probably been diving near 30 years, 29 years, so I'm 57 now.
But how long in Baja, here in La Paz?
I moved to La Paz, well, I was coming down to Mexico and Baja California Sur in the late 80s, and then I finally moved to La Paz in 1996, where I started a business diving and then a whale watching camp, and then I eventually got involved in underwater filming, and I've been underwater filming for natural history documentaries probably since the year 2001.
So it's almost 30 years, no?
It's almost 30 years, and although I've traveled the world, I have extensively dove the entire peninsula, the inside up the Sea of Cortez, and of course the west coast of Baja California.
So then you can say how been the populations fishing in Espiritu Santo, the archipelago. You've been diving almost, I don't know how many times a year since then.
Well, so when I came to La Paz, and before there was a park here, I obviously was one of many that came down here, and we're a lot of young souls that left the city life, and we came to live in La Paz. It was a very calm city, not many people, no traffic, completely different from what it is now. And you could say the island has emulated what's happened to the city in terms of a lot of traffic, a lot of bad air, less water. Anyway, all of that has happened underwater. Our group of friends that are divers, that especially we film, we call it the golden years, that we could come out here, and we were a very few number of people that would jump with hammerhead sharks and orcas and whale sharks and any number of whales here.
Big mantas, you remember?
We had giant mantas here, right on the side of the Mogote. When I came here, one of my first trips, taking people out to dive, we went up to San Jose Island, spent all this time looking for mantas. We came back and we found them all around where the Planta de Luz is located at Punta Prieta.
But now things have changed dramatically. But right now, one of the main goals of a group of people is to protect the archipelago, the National Marine Park of Espiritu Santo. But it's understandable because there are other groups that they don't like to make any change to the management plan that is right now to be updated. But what would you say? Because they say that this is still harmony, and the services for tourism is okay. The fishermen that used to fish like more than 40 years, they say that everything is okay, although they recognize that there's less fishing than before. But besides that, there are problems with the lines in the sea lions. There are problems with many people who their activities represents economical living.
Well, I feel like I'm at a time in my life that I've spent 30 years diving here at this location that I could say, not scientifically, but through my eyes, what I've personally seen is, well, here's a good example. We're on a boat on a 7-day trip, and normally we'd make 3-4 dives a day. We're lucky to make 1, 2's pushing it. No one's enthusiastic about going in the water because there's nothing to see. So what I spoke about earlier, we would come here, and at any given time we could leave the Bay of La Paz and see pilot whales. You know, I was involved when the Humboldt squid were here. I've shot probably 4 documentaries underwater with Humboldt squid, and all these animals are non-existent. You know, you see them very few times, and what I saw in 1996, 97, all through the early 2000s, I thought was amazing. and I talk to guys that have come here before me that tell me the bay's wrecked. So it only continues like that. The next generation that comes here, it's an incredibly beautiful place, and the animals we see in the water, but it's hard to have somebody to be a historian and recognize what we've lost. But it's completely wrecked, and I'm a person that I don't want to take away the liberties of myself, and I don't want to have no diving, no fishing zones. I love fishing. I want to have zones where there's no, I want to emulate parks that have been successful. One in the Channel Islands is a great place to emulate, where there's MPAs, marine protected areas, where you don't dive, or you dive, but you don't kill any fish, you don't fish, you don't even anchor there. So if that doesn't happen here at these islands, then it's just going to be a lost cause. There'll be lots of people coming here because it's great to come out and see the sea lions, but it's the hill's falling fast.
Yeah, and it seems like there are people that say everything looks nice, but they don't see on the water. And of course, the fishermen, the commercial fishermen, the ribereños, they're concerned because they say they have done this decades. But also there are new companies that they are taking tourism to see the coast, and even there is an international union of to conserve the nature that they included in the list. So they say that nothing to make any restriction. But what could be a solution, because they don't want to make a ban to all the activities, of course. But that could be you think that could be a middle in a middle solution? There's sections, or what could be the solution?
There's no solution in it's a government solution. You can have every NGO, every operator, people that have just shown up here that think it's wonderful, people that have been here for 40 years think it's awful. This is a natural resource of everyone that lives here. It's a world resource. So when I travel the world and I see places that have done a good job, I recognize that the government steps in and protects the natural resources. If they, and you know, it seems like it's a very political thing, but you know, if there's less salmon in the water, then they're going to stop salmon fishing. So I don't know that there's any political desire to do that.
But the solution, or apparently, is just to stop activities as the only way, but for how long? And they say, well, what can we do in the meantime? I know, but meanwhile, they say that maybe the conversion to the tourism, but still needs the fishing for commercial, for feeding people, for feeding restaurants. It looks like no way to find a reasonable solution.
Well, like I said, I love to fish, I love to spearfish, I love to film, but again, if you don't emulate a successful park, there is a solution. There's what's called marine protected areas. You have to protect a certain amount of reefs and allow the fish to aggregate and spawn and recuperate, and you don't fish those areas, maybe ever, but from those places, fish aggregate out of the park and people can fish them, and tourism is going to continue no matter what here. But aside from tourism, the sea will just slowly die. Yeah.
And this is not good for the next generation at all. No, what they're going to see. I mean, they have to think on that also. No, it's important to take note of this future for generations.
So when I met guys like Howard Hall and Bob Cranston, who were legends underwater filming, Howard Hall specifically for his film called Shadows in a Desert Sea, which I know brought a number of people here to see hammerhead sharks. I was told by them, and this is back in the late 80s, to see it now because it's all vanishing. Even they recognized it back in the 80s. So you can imagine what the mass of fish life was each decade behind us. And it's now it's dropping dramatically here. And I've noticed just from last year to this year in the places that we've dove, there's way less fish, there's more fish traps, and I don't blame anybody for that, because a fisherman's gonna fish, a cameraman's gonna film, and you're gonna do it until you have to. You have to do it to feed your family, to feed yourself, but at some point you have to protect certain resources and close them to fishing, and certain areas to let these animals aggregate.
If you had the power to send a message that really makes react the authorities and the community in general, what would it be? That's
really hard. I don't know that a lot of authorities want to change it. I think I don't know. I've done so many things for the park here. I've helped with videos, and apparently the park is recognized, I don't know, a green label of some sorts. I didn't even know this. One of the best parks in the world, but I don't know that anybody's ever looked underwater to make a study to see how it's dying at a very fast rate.
Well, hope there could be a good reaction, and we can hope we can have faith in the recuperation of the marine and fauna, the flora and fauna marines. Because always the flora.
Very true. See it now before it's gone.
Yeah. Also, then what the next generation could be condemned to see that in films only.
Yeah.
Not live. This could be a very tragedy.
If there's not a dramatic change, which I've never seen one. When I came here, there was one NGO in La Paz. I remember it. A guy by the name of Black Hawk was his code name. And there was one NGO. Now there must be several hundred. I have not seen anything get better, but maybe I haven't been looking in the right places, but my lying eyes keep telling me that nothing's got better.
Yeah, and also I would like to send a message to those who really think that, or who are thinking that there are dark interests in trying to protect or trying to create more restrictions to the National Park of Espiritu Santo.
Well, I don't know about dark. I mean, I look at what I like, and I push. I don't want anything to be outlawed. Fishing, but there needs to be regulations at certain areas. You have to let it recoup. We'll take the last minnow, we'll take the last triggerfish. So what comes of that? So just leave certain places alone and allow it to grow. There's nothing wrong with that. And everybody gets to have fun. We get to go swimming, diving, fishing, but leave certain areas alone. I don't know why there's any reason to not want this.
Talking about films that you've done in this area, what kind of fun?
So
what matter?
I have a pretty extensive stock library of the peninsula, diving here my 30 years. In that time I've made, I think, 3 different films. One is called Kings of Baja, which was available on Amazon for a number of years, and that it was a natural history story of the peninsula, different animals that we saw in abundance, so you can see lots of animals there. Another one, I don't recall the name of it, but
how long?
That was over 10, that was 12, 14, 15 years ago. And a recent one we did my partner and I produced was about a group of girls here, ladies, that are the only individuals in the country of Mexico allowed to dart sea lions and disentangle them. And we did a documentary on them here in La Paz at Los Islotes, where they disentangled over 25 sea lions. That was pretty heartbreaking, and the work they do is incredible. But it does show you all the negative things that happen from fishing at most of those animals were damaged by people going to fish late at night. Also, yeah, throw nets, casting lines with hooks in their mouths. several were dead in nets with gill nets wrapped around their necks. But these girls had set up this campaign on their own, used their own money. One is a veterinarian. She was trained up in San Francisco at a marine mammal center. So they set up a hospital on Espiritu Santo where we would either capture animals on net or dart them and tranquilize them, take them back, and they would disentangle them and then set them loose. And that was an incredible effort that was done by them, the park, and the Marines. And the Marines were probably the most well-equipped, really great guys that would do anything to capture an animal. We couldn't say enough about those guys.
Okay. Thank you, really.